back here at Live from the Lakehouse. Hope you enjoyed that talk. It's really great. And now that we're back here, Holly, I'm Kobie, and this is Holly, and we're here to get this going. Why don't you introduce our next guest?
Yeah, so up next, we have Pohl, who is a Senior Director of Field Engineering and has had a very busy week. Jason, thank you for making time for us today.
Thank you so much, Holly, and thank you, Kobie, for having me here.
All right, so you spent a lot of time talking to a lot of customers this week. What has been kind of top of mind for them this week?
Yeah, top of mind, I think, has been Delta Lake and all the advancements have been happening with, Delta Lake 4.0 is about to go out. And yeah, we announced an acquisition last week of Tabular, which is also very exciting for people.
So yes, I'm desperate to hear more about Uniform because I know it's been something that people have been able to use for a while. I know it's gone GA, but it's been in preview for a while now. Can you talk to us about people that have been successful with Uniform? Where is it a great fit and where is it maybe not so much a great fit?
Well, Uniform, it's been, as you mentioned, it's been in preview. I think during that preview, we've had about 4 exabytes of data that have been written out using Uniform. So, and it's been really successful because right now people have all these interoperability issues where they need to be able to, write data once, but then use it across all these different platforms. So one of our customers, M-Science, they actually used Uniform to write data out and then leverage it within several of their platforms. I think they use Snowflake as well as Databricks. And with Uniform, we're able to basically unify these format layers so that you just write your data out once and then use it with all the engines. And I think, one of the things we're going to do with this Tabular acquisition is try to narrow the gap between all of these different formats, particularly Iceberg and Delta Lake. And I think a good example of this is going to be, we just released the variant data type within Delta Lake.
Yes, that's exciting, isn't it?
It's like, if you work with JSON data, it's a faster way to work with it. But if you can imagine, Iceberg doesn't have a variant data type yet, but eventually they would create one. And if we didn't have the ability to unify these 2 formats, we might end up with 2 different standards. So I think we're going to have an opportunity to really unify these standards into one common uniform format.
Okay then, so in terms of, I know there's been a lot of work done. How much work is there still to do to get up to a really solid parity? Are we looking, do you know how much work there is left?
Well, it's what, 1 week in or so?
Okay, fine.
So we have to build out the project plan, but I think it's going to go faster than everybody thinks. So. Okay
then, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I love this idea that you don't have to make so many copies of your data. And again, when it comes to Delta, Iceberg, even Hudi, just kind of the vast majority of it is Parquet, which is great. We just need to turbocharge it a little bit. And we've just kind of got these 3 different clubs, kind of groups on what is the best way to do that. And it does seem very silly to I've seen some people oh, well, I'll read in my Delta and then I'll write it out as Iceberg. Yeah. And that seems like such an enormous waste of time when the magic for all 3 of them is maybe 1% of the data size.
Yeah, I mean, there's when you get down to it, the common denominator is Parquet, so all of these 3 formats, so just saving data to Parquet, and then the metadata on top is just a little bit different. So we actually, we're pretty proud of the fact that the Xtable guys, they contributed support for Hudi into Uniform before the GA of it, and it's also a good example of how I think now we have twice as many contributors to Delta Lake as we do from Databricks contributors. So it's become a really impressive community effort, and so we're really interested to see how we can get the communities of both Delta Lake and Iceberg together to kind of unify things.
So important to have an ecosystem and have a community of contributors from over diverse sources. That also helps people feel confident that the technologies as they are evolving are going to be available to people where they don't have to worry about feeling like they've been locked into one path, one vendor, and those kind of things. It's fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah.
So speaking of open source, so something that's also been helping the open source community is Delta kernel.
Yes.
As well. Now, I am going to be very honest. I have tried multiple times to kind of properly understand what Delta kernel is. I've got as far as understanding it makes integrations with other things a lot easier. That's as far as I've got. But do you want to talk about some of the integrations that we've seen that have been quite recent?
So we announced Delta kernel last year at Data and I Summit.
Yes, but now we've done the work.
But now we've actually done the work. And more importantly, the community's done a lot of the work too. So,
yes.
So the Rust community has created Delta kernel for Rust. And what that allows you to do is have one library that knows how to read and write to Delta, and you can just basically include that as a dependency whenever you're building something for Rust, or there's C++ bindings for that as well. There's another Delta kernel for Java, which you can use for Scala and things like that. But what the DuckDB guys did is they took that Delta Rust kernel, and then they used that as the basis for building a Delta Lake adapter.
Yes.
And so they did an amazing demonstration on stage at the keynote today where they showed how you can use DuckDB to connect to Delta Lake, and then basically also connect to our new open source Unity catalog project, and being able to read and write data to Delta Lake with this. So,
yeah, my understanding with the kernel is that we do a lot of the heavy lifting for the interoperability, because previously you'd have to build one for DuckDB and then one for Flink and then one for Sleek, there were so many connectors, and every time we wanted to, there was a new release that came out with all some new wonderful features like the variant type, and yet we would be dependent on every single project having to take the manual steps to then update all of these things, and it was kind of a dependency nightmare, to be honest.
Yeah, it was crazy, because I think we had something like 8 different connectors that were all independently being developed, and so what would happen is each of these was being developed by people in the community, and they can only accept the new features as fast as they can. So we would release something like liquid clustering, and then because there wasn't like a common library, you would have to wait for people to implement this on their own. But now, liquid clustering is part of Uniform as well.
Is it?
Yeah. And I think we've had something like, basically what it does is it's a more clever way to lay out your data, so that way you can hopefully get rid of having to do partition by. And you end up skipping data, and every time you skip data, you make things go faster, and you spend less money on clusters reading data that you are just going to filter out anyway.
Also, you're spending less money and time on people doing the development.
Absolutely.
So, back in the day when I was in our consulting services, the amount of times to be like, we've got this table, we've written it out, but we've not quite chosen the right partition key, or we'd have to do experiments on what to Z order by. Instead, now it just seems so much easier.
I remember your talk, was it last year, 2 years ago, of how one table almost killed me? It was something like that?
Oh yeah, it was how one table nearly ruined my life.
Yes,
yeah, that was an internal talk. I did not talk about that. But yeah, it was
not internal anymore.
Don't look for that one on YouTube.
No, that was a really interesting one. They had truly huge quantities of data, and I would see this kind of trend over and over again especially if someone had come from a Hive Parquet background and be like, we've picked 5 partition columns, and actually not all of them were necessary. And again, if you were, they were really smart guys, so it was a great open conversation. But if you're coming from an analytics background and suddenly you've taken that step up to the next level of data, and you're all of a sudden I'm like, okay, let me tell you about JSON files. Let me tell you how this has worked. And now tell me about how a reader works for Delta, and kind of, the look in their eyes of horror of just kind of like, oh my goodness, what have I gotten myself into? Whereas now it's just like, okay, what do you commonly use columns? Go. Yeah. Makes things a lot easier.
So much easier. I think we've skipped about 1.2 zettabytes of data because of liquid clustering.
That's amazing.
I don't even know how much that is. I just know it's a lot.
Wow.
So what else is coming up in Delta then, or what else has been released recently?
So let's see, Uniform's a big one.
Yes.
The liquid clustering's in there. I think there's going to be a lot of focus on Uniform and bringing these formats together. Delta sharing has been continuing to get more and more popular.
Oh my goodness, yes.
We recently, we had an announcement or a press release with Amperity. So Amperity is a platform that a lot of people use for doing analytics on their data. And they're saving the data in a data lake, and that data lake is built with Delta Lake. And then their customers want to get that data back so they can do some more analysis. And before, you would have to basically make all these individual REST API calls to get your data out. Now, with Delta sharing, you can just establish a Delta sharing connection, and you can basically get access to your data much more easily in a secure way.
Nice.
And I'm seeing a trend with a lot of these SaaS providers that they're already saving all their data in a data lake. Why can't they just enable an easier way to get to it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also, I think some of the biggest misconception I've heard about Delta sharing is it's like, I'm not really monetizing my data, so I don't really need to share my data externally. But actually, it's normally kind of cross-department that I see the sharing happen more often. I mean, I don't know, pre-Databricks, the stack I was using was a little bit old, but just trying to collaborate with someone in another part of the business because something came up, you'd have to wait 3 months to kind of get access to something or even work together. Whereas with Delta sharing, that's not the case at all, and they don't necessarily have to have kind of like Delta as a reader. Sorry, Databricks as a reader for that thing. You can share it pretty much however you like, which is great.
Yeah, one of our early customers that was trying out Delta sharing years ago. It was a customer. They were on AWS, and then they acquired a company that was on Azure, and both of them were using Databricks, and they had to share this data, and they were literally just like exporting to CSV, emailing it.
Oh my goodness.
It's not good. It wasn't sensitive, I don't think.
No.
But still, between two different Databricks tendencies, and even that was a challenge.
Yeah, so they started using Delta sharing, and they're like, oh my God, this saves us so much time and headache. So it's just simple cases like that. It's same company, just getting that access to the data. So
yeah, we also have the Cloudflare integration now as well. So if you are doing something cross-cloud, you don't necessarily have to kind of save it out to your storage of cloud choice. You can write it out to Cloudflare and get rid of those egress fees. So if that's something that's a concern, then that's one way you can get around it as well.
Yeah. And with with the R2 on R2 on Cloudflare.
Yes, thank you. R2, yes.
And with Delta Lake, and with DuckDB, you've got the R2D2 stack. So.
Okay, brilliant. Well done. So clap.
Well played. Well played.
Thank you.
So what other trends are we seeing in kind of data engineering in the Delta world at the moment?
Let's see. I think there's going to be more focus on Delta sharing and enabling the sharing of not just tables, but on Databricks we're sharing out tables, we're sharing views, we're sharing models,
yes.
We're sharing volumes. So all these different pieces can be shared out, and then we've also announced like Databricks clean rooms. So now with the ability to share all those different objects into a secure place, you can be more in control of what goes in and what goes out, and do collaboration across clouds or even across environments with people who may or may not be using Databricks today. So,
can you tell us more about clean rooms? I don't think we've really spoken about it much today. So tell people at home.
Yeah. So with Delta sharing, you're essentially sharing data to some sort of counterparty, and you're kind of like on the honor system for once they get that data, they're going to do or not do whatever you didn't want them to do with it, but that's okay depending on the type of data you're sharing. But some data sets you don't want to do that. If you've got two companies that let's say are comparing HR data for like a mergers and acquisitions type of use case, you're going to want like a very secure area where you control what data goes in, you control which users are allowed to be in there, and you control what data comes out. So you need to do that with some sort of approval workflow to make sure that both people turn the keys at the same time. And that's what clean rooms do. And a clean room, therefore, it's only as good as the tools that you have in that clean room. And for us, it's just another special type of Databricks workspace. So you have all the tools that you're going to use for doing statistical analysis or creating machine learning models or just summing up data. So.
Yeah. So you talked about a kind of merger and acquisition scenario where people might use it. I mean, what other cases would people benefit from clean rooms?
A lot of it is like marketing attribution. So you've got two different companies that have their own types of data, and they know who their customers are, but there's not like a common identifier. So they'll want to basically put it in a clean room and do some sort of identity resolution to try to figure out how many of these customers are the same actually. And so once you know how many customers are the same, you can see the demographics, and you can start to build a marketing campaign based off the common users that you have. So.
Excellent. Does it ever, I mean, the examples that you've given so far have been kind of like different companies kind of coming together to work on a thing. When people are in the same company, I mean, does it ever make sense to share data like that at all, or is that not really?
I could see that if you have like some segmented areas of the company that are traditionally not allowed to see each other's data, but you might have special use cases where they need to. This gives you a way to do that in a secure way and audit everything, so that if you need to prove who was getting access and why were they getting access, you have a way to do that.
Yeah, actually, no, that is a really good point. In regulation with finance, some companies are ring-fenced internally, and they're not really meant to, apart from the cases of audit, they're not really meant to kind of cross that boundary. So yeah, that's a really interesting one.
So many times it's not even the gating of the access is the key. It can just be the paper trail itself, just so that logging the access that has occurred. Is there something about the way that the clean rooms work that also could be used in that way, just to provide visibility into the access?
Well, luckily, clean rooms is it's predicated on using Unity Catalog, and Unity Catalog has all this audit trail built into it. So every time you make a request to query something, we log that out to the audit trail, and if you don't have access, that'll get logged out as well. If we grant or revoke, that's got the access in there. So everything you're doing, we can produce this audit trail because some of our customers are really heavily regulated and they need to be able to generate those audit trails on request. So
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think most of that data is available in system tables as well.
That's exactly where it goes, yeah.
Yeah, so that's another great Unity Catalog feature. I know this isn't like particularly, I don't want to say sexy, but it is so beneficial to be able to have not just a trace of who was able to access what, but even things like, fairly reasonable things like, okay, this cluster's been up for so long. Why is this happening?
Yep.
Roughly how much am I spending on these particular things? Which team is this linked to?
Yep.
All of those kinds of things. I really enjoy it. I mean, that might be because I remember the olden days when you had to do it all manually, and it was very painful. And now with Unity Catalog, it's something that runs in the background, and you are able to get that data and do that analysis and kind of turn it into dashboards or whatever it is you want to do. But yeah, it's really good.
It's a lot simpler now. And all the lineage that we capture is saved into these system tables as well. So you can use this to figure out which of the tables are the most important in my system. So if you got one table that gets queried 1,000 times a day and one query that gets queried once a day, if that once a day table feeds the table that gets queried 1,000 times a day, then they're both equally important, And so you can't have that type of insight unless you've got the lineage in the system tables as well as all the access patterns. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Anytime.
Excellent. All right, then. Up next, we have another wonderful guest, but I am going to let Kobie do some introductions.
Well, in the AI side of the house, this person needs no introduction, but I'm so excited to be able to share a little bit of time with Jonathan Frankle for everyone in the community at large. Thank you for joining us, Jonathan. It's so wonderful to be here.
Thank you so much for having me.
He's a chief data scientist with the Mosaic AI effort, and he's been through the Mosaic ML time and into this company, he's been the champion and the main steward for what we've been doing, how we've pursued all of the things that we've been doing in the AI space. So let me just hand it over to Jonathan with this question and see how we get started. One of the keys about this is the academic side of what we do. The whole thing about how everything began with us with looking at the academic community and seeing what are the right things to do to make LLM training, to make ML in general more efficient. Things have obviously evolved a lot since we got started. I'm curious, as of today, you were at ICLR earlier this summer.
Yeah.
What's the state of the affairs with the academic community? What are the hot topics in this space?
I think the academic community is alive and well, which is good for the entire machine learning community that it's alive and well. It's the lifeblood of everything we do. It's really important to me that we keep an eye on openness. I think in the era where Gen AI has become not just an interesting academic topic and scientific topic, but a real moneymaker and a real important competitive advantage, people are starting to close up and aren't talking as much about what they do. And it's important to me that we always have an open dialogue on these things. I think innovation only happens in the open. Progress really only happens quickly in the open. The reason we're here right now, having this conversation, the reason why it's the Data and AI Summit, is because of open research that happened in academia. The reason why Databricks exists is open research in academia, Spark. So to me, it's vital not only that the academic community is vibrant, but that we as industry sustain it. And I say this coming from that world and trying to go back to that world all the time. We open source our models, we open source our code, we share as much as we can about the science that we do. I think much more so than, sometimes, my superiors might love. But I think it's important to invest. We are planting seeds that will grow into more exciting work. And it was fun at iClear to see, some of what people are growing. It's, as usual, it's all over the place, from building on cool industry work to completely random topics I didn't even know existed yet. But a few years ago, one of those topics was called deep learning. And here we are. So, it's important to see the academic community thrive.
And just to dig in on the academic aspects of your career and the path that you're on right now, in parallel with what you're doing as chief scientist at Databricks, can you tell us a little bit about what your academic story is right now, like where you're headed right now, your role?
Yeah, I mean, in academia, I'm a collaborator. I try to work with as many students as I can. I try to make sure our team is working with as many students as we can. I'm still supervising PhD students in academia. I try to visit as often as I can. There's something about, it's not just being around a university, but being around students. Faculty are old and washed up and boring, and I can say this as a would-be faculty member. But it's the students who have the crazy ideas. They're the ones challenging convention because they don't know any better. That was me a long time ago, but I'm old and washed up now. And so I count on our interns, I count on our junior folks who have just joined from academia, and I count on the students who I meet with. Whenever I go to a university, they tell me like, oh, all these professors want to meet with you, and I'm like, no, I don't want the professors, I want the students. That's where the action's happening. And it's important that we find ways to make sure those students are successful.
Right on, right on. So one of the other things that I think is really one of the most fun things about your work here, and one of the things is that you've been always very vocal and ready to get involved with the team and encourage the team to do great things. So you got some highlights.
Are you trying to find a polite way to say that my hair looks funny? Is that what you told me?
You got some highlights going right now, and you very famously actually even got your hair turned blue after we hit some very important some performance marks with the DBRX model. I have to admit, I'm curious, like, what's the next thing that's going to let people, say, for example, get that little dinosaur put on your...
So I was going to volunteer your hair next, Kobie, so you got to watch yourself. No, so the story is that, I think in research, this is just a philosophy thing I have. Science is hard because you never know whether you can finish something. In engineering, we often know we can build it. It's just a matter of how hard it's going to be, how long it's going to take, and how good it'll be. In research, we may fail. And so you have two choices. You can either, feel miserable all the time because you're worried that you're not going to succeed, or you can have fun and accept that failure is just a part of it. There's joy and there's laughter in failure and in discovery. I choose fun, and you have to choose fun every day. Part of that is in our culture, but part of that is in, I have to motivate the team somehow, and sometimes money doesn't quite do it anymore. Sometimes I buy them swords. This is a true fact, just for the record. We have a swordsmith. They're an approved Databricks vendor, and I will, for people who do great deeds to the research team, I will buy them a sword with their name and the Mosaic logo on it as kind of a legacy of what we used to do in the Mosaic days.
Sorry, I have to ask. Sorry, there's a proper broadsword.
Yeah. These are they're not sharpened, but if you hit somebody hard enough, you could probably cause some damage. We got them for the legal team recently after coming through DBRX, and so all of their kids think their parents are the coolest lawyers ever because they get swords at work.
Oh, I see. It's not some kind of conflict resolution tool where it's like, I will see you at dawn with your Mosaic sword.
No sword fighting. We don't do fighting, but swords are a motivator when money doesn't work anymore, and when swords don't work, I'm willing to sacrifice my body. And I offered up my hair. I would dye it green if the team had the world's best model at programming, at open source model at launch time of DBRX, according to a popular benchmark called Human Eval. And 2 weeks out, it was looking pretty bleak, and I thought this is a safe bet. And darned if the team didn't crush what I gave them after 2 weeks. So I figured out how to motivate them. They can ace any benchmark. They just have to be willing to watch their boss make an idiot out of himself. It's worth it.
Honestly, I mean, obviously you've contributed huge amounts here. I would love to see a management handbook from you as well in terms of how to motivate a team. Chapter 1, dye your hair. Chapter 2,
Chapter 1, swords.
Chapter
Swords first, hair dye afterward.
Okay.
We'll work on this.
Always fun.
But I have an unfair advantage here over Ali with respect to what I can sacrifice.
Hair to
dye. Maybe I bring a little more to the table in that one respect. Don't tell him I said that.
It's fine. We're all friends. No one's going to say anything.
Yeah, I don't know who's watching this right now, but...
Yeah, it's all going to come out in the edit. Oh, wait, we're live? So let me throw this out. I'm curious, if you can, what are you thinking about for the next areas of research that the Databricks research team is going to do? And what's going to come? What are the interesting areas for us?
Yeah, so this is, I'm glad you asked me now and not 2 weeks ago, because my philosophy on this is that I don't like to talk about the future too much. And there are a couple of reasons for this. One is that just the future is hard to predict in AI in general. We try to work on the things that will be most important to our customers, and what that means changes on a daily basis. I remember back when GPT-2 came out, I was at Google Brain at the time, and I remember laughing at that and going why would you want a model to generate language? That seems silly, and it's pretty bad at it. Then I remember when GPT-3 came out, and I said the exact same thing, and who's laughing now? So if I've learned one thing, it's not to count on predicting the future, at least on my part too much. The other piece is that, I like to be careful about what we talk about because, not even from a trade secret perspective, I'm just a bigger fan of speaking through our work. I don't think it's great for me to just talk and, try to wax philosophical about whatever we're doing. I think the models speak for themselves. And so what I'd really say to you is take a look at what we've released this week and let that speak for itself in terms of where we're going. Our collaboration with Shutterstock, which was a huge deal we've been working on for over a year. The team has been building diffusion models forever. We started collaborating with Shutterstock probably this time last year. Massive undertaking on both parts. I think the work speaks for itself in terms of what that resulted in, and I think you can imagine that's just the beginning of a huge amount of multimodal stuff that we can do now that we have these amazing partners. On the DBRX side, we released an amazing language model just a month and a half ago. Give us a chance to catch our breath, gosh. But again, to speak through our work, if you take a look on this cool website called Chatbot Arena, you'll see a very interesting model that just got posted yesterday called DBRX Next. I don't know what that's about. I don't know what's going on there, but kind of intriguing, right?
Very intriguing
So,
indeed.
I mean, you can go and play with it and see if, see how our work speaks for itself.
So as a bit of a layperson, I probably, out of the three of you, know significantly less than either of you when it comes to the AI side. Tell me more about Shutterstock. I mean, we've had a lot about why data quality is so important, and how does Shutterstock kind of come into that from like images and the right kind of images that we want to be using?
So I think it goes beyond data quality. There's more than that. There's data trust.
Ooh.
And I think that's, we all think about data quality, but if you're an enterprise, it's not just about quality, but where did the data come from? And
Yes.
what is the provenance? Can you track that? We talk about governance a lot. That's a key aspect to this. Shutterstock has the licenses to all of the examples. This training data was submitted to them by content creators. Content creators get compensated when the data is licensed or when the model gets used. That's really important to me. We waited and waited and waited almost a year and a half before we released our first model that did image generation because I wanted to find the right partner and the right data set that enterprises could trust, and that's Shutterstock. There are only a couple of companies in the world that have amazing photo libraries with captions with the kind of quality that Shutterstock does, and they've been such an extraordinary partner. I love getting to hang out with them. I mean, they're fun to just go and spend time with. I'm in New York, they're over in the Empire State Building. I like to go visit just to spend time with their team. They're fantastic scientists, they're fantastic people, and they understand content creators and artists in a way that I fundamentally don't. So we each brought incredible ingredients to the table. They brought data, we brought AI, they brought trust, and they brought a community of content creators who they support and they look after. And that to me is kind of, that's the holy grail of how we build AI for everyone.
Mm-hmm. So had they started on any endeavors with AI? I mean, obviously, we've seen this big convergence of people who are making AI versus those who have huge kind of sources of data, and they've not necessarily overlapped that much before until they've realized, oh, hang on a minute, this could be really useful for someone. So do they have a lot of, or a bit of AI background,
yeah.
or did you have to?
Shutterstock is phenomenal at AI. That was part of the reason the collaboration was great. They bring a ton to the table and we bring a ton to the table on the AI side. They know their customers and they know the creative community in ways that we don't. And we're just really, really, really deep on the scientific side. So it was a match made in heaven, but they've been training their own models for a long time. And this model is a joint project. This is not, the Databricks model built on Shutterstock data. This was a collaboration. Shutterstock brought a ton to the table on the AI side in addition to the data side. That's why I love working with them. We're scientists together, and that's the best collaboration you can imagine.
How wonderful. That's really great to hear. And really, the element that you brought to this that is so important for us to continue to figure out as the industry at large, as society at large, is this part where the content creators have a voice in what happens, have a stake in it, and that is a positive stake for them, as opposed to, there's a lot of talk and a lot of fear where people are concerned about what's going to happen to the industry, where the content creators are just sort of left out of the loop and end up like on the outside looking in of this incredible trend. And it's like there can be a positive way, and I'm really excited to see what happens there. So what you described is really inspirational.
Yeah, I think there are kind of two views of the future in some sense, and it's really about centralization versus control. I think that, there's a world in which the models get centralized by a small number of players who decide basically what everybody else gets to use and how they use it. They decide what data goes into the model, and you don't have a choice about that. Your data can't go into the model, and even if it could, you don't know what else went in there. You don't get a chance to build the model. It's not really built for your application, for your use case. If I've discovered one thing since joining Databricks, and we believe this at Mosaic, but it's been validated now that I'm here at Databricks, we have 12,000 or more customers. Everybody has unique data. Everybody has a unique story, a unique goal, a unique situation, unique needs in terms of latency and cost and time and what return on investment looks like, what success looks like, how good something has to be, whether it's 99.9999% or whether 90% is actually okay in a more open-ended application. And you can get a lot more value out of AI if you build it for you, if you build it in the way that you need it, if you kind of laser focus on your application. The line I love to use, it sounds very corny, but like nobody needs AI that does everything. Everybody needs AI that does something. And why not build that something? It's much more cost effective at the end of the day, and it's customized for exactly what you need. And I see my job as bringing the science, bringing the technology, and bringing the products, and making it possible for anyone to build anything they want out of Gen AI, whether that's fine-tuning a model or calling an API, or literally building their own model from scratch.
Yeah, fantastic. And I love the fact that our tools are making that just an easier path over and over. And that was one of the things about the acquisition when Databricks acquired MosaicML that was such a beautiful natural match. They had so much to go for when it comes to the data. They had the customers, like you mentioned, the 12,000 customers, and all these people have their data here. Databricks had already built the trust. Back to the trust thing you mentioned about Shutterstock, that having trust and getting the trust with the people who own the data or created the data, and then being able to give them the tools they need to be able to yield the functional needs that they want to have met.
Yeah, I think if I could give one closing thought, it would really be coming back to trust. It's, in all respects, in data, in modeling, in being open and sharing our science, in giving customers transparency into how we do our work and how we make recommendations to them about what they should do, and just trust in how we work together. The Gen AI space is really uncertain and really opaque, not because of secrecy, but just because it's new science and nobody understands how it works yet. And so for me, the number one commodity I have is not our scientific acumen or our GPUs, it's trust from our customers. I spent a lot of time talking to customers this week where I said, no, actually you don't need the expensive thing, let's do the cheap thing. I think that'll get your problem solved. To me, that will pay back for Databricks' business in spades in the long run because we built that trust, and as customers climb the maturity ladder and they need more from us, we'll be the ones they trust to work with because we've earned that trust early on. So really, for me, every single day, before anything else, before making amazing models, before lots of GPUs and having lots of fun on that, before dyeing my hair green or swords, it's all about trust. Trust for our customers and trust for the community, and trust for every member of the ecosystem, data providers, artists, content creators, everybody. That's really what gets me to work every day.
Fantastic. I'm so glad that we had a chance to talk, Jonathan. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know you've got a very busy schedule, and I know you're literally on the way to the airport after this. So having made the time for us right here, we're just so grateful. Thank you. We really have had everything we have for today, for right now, this segment. And so that's us at the Lakehouse right now, and so going on to the next thing.